I'd like to begin by acknowledging that we're meeting on the traditional lands of Acadia First Nation, part of Mi'kma'ki, the ancestral territory of the Mi'kmaq people. Item number 5, approval of the agenda. Is there any additions or deletions to the agenda as circulated? Councillor Lauren Cushing.
Thank you, Mr. Warden. I'd like to add to the agenda Yarmouth Fire Department banquet, which I attended.
All right, so we can put that under new business, item 9.6. Yarmouth Fire Department banquet. Could I have a motion to add that to the motion? Moved by Councillor Sherry Hurlbert, seconded by Councillor Nick Hilton. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Any more additions or deletions to the agenda as circulated? If not, I'd entertain a motion to approve the agenda as amended. Moved by Councillor Nick Hilton, seconded by Councillor Daniel Allen. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Contrary? Motion carried. Item number 6, if there's any declarations of conflict of interest, please notify me and I'll make sure your name's noted in the meeting minutes on that item that you declare a conflict. Item number 7, approval of the minutes. What's the council's pleasure? Councillor Nick Hilton.
You want a motion to approve the minutes of September 11th Committee of the Whole, September 14th Committee of the Whole, and September 27th regular council meeting?
Okay, motion on the floor. Do I have a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Patty Durkee. Any discussion on that motion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion carried unanimously. Item number 8, old business. First reading of the municipal planning strategy and land use bylaws. 8.1.1 Plan Modi report, 8.1.2 draft municipal planning strategy, and 8.1.3 draft land use bylaw. What is council's pleasure? Deputy Warden Trevor Cunningham.
Mr. Chair, given that the process of the land use bylaws and municipal planning strategy are a process of reviewing those and you know, it's been undertaken, I guess, at the PAC level for a couple of years, essentially, and it's been now before council for, I think, a couple months, and we've had some extensions, rightfully so, during that time that it's been with council. So a lot of hard work's been done, and also given that there was a process put in place which Upland expertly managed and the public participated in, that was very clearly articulated and over a very long period of time, and then it came to council and many folks did have feedback. We've made a number of changes to the document, and I think those are good changes. And of late, there's been a couple more things come to us. But having said that they can go ahead with the public hearing and council can take those pieces under advisement separately. So given that, I guess the danger in continuing on the process is we are sort of almost outside of the process now, in the sense that you can have somebody come as an individual and say, I want this changed, and we could say yes to everything, but that doesn't necessarily honor all of the process that went on before, if everybody understands what I'm saying, in terms of we had a public participation process over a very, very long period of time. We sweated the details through the PAC. They took a look at it. We made some adjustments at the council table, rightfully so, but I think there's diminishing return at this point. So given that, be it resolved that council for the municipality of the District of Yarmouth gives first reading to and will schedule a public hearing regarding the draft municipal planning strategy and the land use bylaw as attached to the October 25th, 2023 council agenda. And I'll move that.
Okay, a motion on the floor. Do I have a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Daniel Allen. Okay, a motion on the floor. Is there any discussion? Councillor Nick Hilton, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and through you to Ann. The with the questions from the last meeting. I really like the changes that were made, and they're in the new draft revisions, the revisions that we're approving, or that are on the table to approve tonight. Yeah. Any final comments from you?
Just hit your red button, and I'll turn your mic on, Ian. Councillor Cushing, could you please turn off your microphone, and then, there you go.
No, thank you, Mr. Chair, and through you to Councillor Hilton. No, I think we're, these drafts that you have in front of you tonight respond both to the specific changes that council voted on in the September meeting, a number of changes around things like teaching of one student at a time, adding a definition of livestock, clarifying the development officer's responsibilities when entering a place of residence, and reverting the sensitive environment zone to its March extent. And then there were, as you mentioned, a couple of items that council, said, please come back with some suggested language. So one was abattoirs, and the drafts include, as you have them tonight, have changes to enable small-scale abattoirs under 400 square meters, so just over 4,000 square feet, in a variety of zones as of right. And then there was also changes to the airport noise restriction zone, allowing a wider range of commercial uses, and allowing shipping containers as storage buildings along the commercial stretch of the airport noise restriction zone. So I think, I hope, it sounds like you think those changes respond to your direction, and I thank you for that direction, and I feel like we're in a good place.
So if a first reading was approved, what does that look like if there's further changes? Like, one of the questions that came up this week was in the low density residential zone, as it equated to farming and stuff like that. Like, can those lines still be moved after first reading without sending the whole thing back for, another full revision? Like,
Yeah. So through you, Mr. Chair, to the councillor. So after this, so actually on the question of agricultural in the low density residential, that was one other that we caught. And so that change has also been made preemptively in this draft. So if you're comfortable with that, that would be included in the draft that goes forward. So that's already addressed. After this, if you were to give it first reading tonight, we'd schedule a public hearing. There's minimum advertising requirements, so there's a few weeks out before that happens. That's a public venue where people can either submit written submissions ahead of time or show up, ideally registering ahead of time to speak and speak directly to council. At that point, council can make either no changes or non-substantive changes, and there's one that someone caught that sings permitted in all zones, so that kind of thing we can correct with no issue. If there are, council can also direct substantive changes. That's ones generally where I like to think of them ones that affect people's rights. So if you're changing zones on property or changing what's allowed in zones, changing things that affect the material differences in the document, you can certainly do that as a council. The only thing is then you're going back and you have to give people an opportunity to comment on those changes, so you'd be holding another public hearing.
not another first reading, just another public hearing?
Well, you'd have to schedule another one, so you'd give it first reading again, but it'd be fairly straightforward, and then you'd schedule another public hearing.
Okay, perfect. And I do appreciate all the work that you've done in being along for the ride. The last meeting was a difficult one for me because I still strongly believe in the parts of the sensitive environment area, and the fact that we, by removing the extra language, actually have nothing in our new bylaws that protect certain parts of Modi and the environment. So that's still a concern for me moving forward. But for the most part, I'm in agreement with first reading, as in the fact that it takes us to a public hearing, which is the one thing that we're still hearing, is that the public wants one final time to have their say. So I'm kind of 50-50 right now on what the right thing to do is, because I think we are addressing the concerns that are coming forward, and will continue to address those concerns. So I do like the work that's being done.
Any more questions or comments? I'm going to eventually go before I call for the question. Councillor Lauren Cushing.
Thank you, Mr. Warden, to you, to Ian. I'm very happy with the process that we've been going through so far, and the changes that we've made. It's very, very positive, and knowing that we're going to have another public meeting for the public to ask their questions by either by verbal or by written. That wasn't me, was it? And where was I going? Oh, yeah. So that was great, and I think, Ian, you know, I got to thank you for your work, and you answered the rest of my questions about the next public session and whatnot. So, you know, it's been a long road that we've gone down, and our PAC group, which I'm a member of, 158-page document. I doubt if anybody anywhere could have read every line of that 158-page document and interpreted it the right way. So it was good to see that we had some people digesting certain sections of it and bringing it to our attention. So I believe that's. I think we're going down the right road. Thank you.
Any other comments other than what I might have to say? First of all, thank you very much to the PAC and staff for putting together this document. No document that you ever get is perfect or anything like that. It also showed the need we got to improve ways to engage public, because I've received lots of calls, and I mean lots. Just today alone, I received 6 calls, and I was in the woods trying to struggle to find cell service so I could talk to a few people about some of the changes that were coming up. Most generally, the document is 90% the same as it was before. One thing I want to touch on is the airport noise reduction zone, and it says in here, Ian, the airport noise reduction zone limits permitted uses and not permitting new residential uses. So that means that someone who may own a piece of property out there cannot build a residence? Is that exactly what that means? Because if...
Yes to you, Mr. Chair. And yes, that is correct. So existing residences, of course, would be permitted to continue and go about their way, but new residences, new dwellings would not be permitted, and that is a continuation of the existing, that is currently in place in the existing bylaw.
Yeah, it is. And I received a concern about that in regards the other way, where someone owned a piece of property inside the airport noise reduction zone, and they would like to be able to build a residence there. They said they didn't personally care if they lived in an airport. That's one thing that I've heard just very recently. And also in regards to shipping containers as an accessory use as an existing, this draft bylaw includes changes that would allow an unlimited number of shipping containers on lots on Highway 3 North and the Yarmouth County Trail. To me, that was brought in here the last minute. That was brought up, if my recollection serves me correctly, we never heard anything about that until July. That's something that was put in there to, in my opinion, just a last-minute thought, trying to put it in. In regards to an unlimited amount of shipping containers, we have development agreements. And I think it should go up to if you're going to be using them as a, whatever use you're going to use them for, I think the public should be aware, and I think that it should be going under a development agreement. Now, some people might not care how many there are, but however, they may want it covered up, because some people may think they're unsightly, some people may not. I personally think that should be going under a development agreement, because then council could have conditions on there, whether we want to put a number that we want to see no more than, whether we want to see it so many fencing for privacy. I think that should be added. I think that should have gone through as an amendment later on down the road, because we can't open up this document anytime. I'm not in agreement with that, to tell you the truth. Agricultural uses in low-density residential zone, I do agree with that. Members of the public have raised concerns about the rezoning of the lands in North Sheboygan. It's always a balance, whether you like some changes or not. I know that we can open up this document. Another thing in regards to the environment-sensitive zone. There was a lot larger tract of land, however, it's been decided by council that we wanted to back it off to what the original intent was, or the original document said. I'm personally still not convinced that that's the route to take. I think that the PAC should take a more holistic look at that and designate areas. The environment-sensitive zone come about in regards to an issue out on what they call Big Pond. At the end of the day, when this is enacted, I really would have liked to have heard from all the landowners around that area. I think there's a better way to go about it. What my big fear is it's going to expand, and it's going to infringe on the property owners' rights of peaceful enjoyment of their own property. I have a problem with that as it stands. I don't think I can support this document as it stands. I'll say that right out. I think we should how can I put this? We have a process that we follow through the MPS and LUB. I was a big part of this process 10 years ago. Unfortunately, I don't sit on the PAC no more due to some other duties. I know how much work and how hard it is to do a large document like this. And once again, I want to thank the PAC and staff for providing this document. But I've never heard so many questions and comments in regards to a document like I've heard over the past few months. Another issue that I have, if first reading passes tonight, the old MPS LUB and this MPS LUB will be in effect. So, as of right now, I don't think I can support this, but we'll see when I call for the vote. Councillor Allen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I did have a couple questions about the airport noise reduction zone, because I know that we made a motion at the last meeting in reference to that, and we also made a motion to instruct staff to look at layering a way to layer the zone. So did you find that, were we allowed to do that? Because I know that the airport noise restriction zone is dictated to us by other levels. So at the time, we were only allowed so many shipping containers, and we had instructed staff to look into being able to layer the zone for the same purpose that you're mentioning. So did we get a result on that work?
Yeah, through Mr. Chair to Councillor Allen. So, yeah, the airport noise restriction zone does come to us from Transport Canada. They do noise modeling forecasts, and the whole idea of the zone is to avoid having land uses that would generate high complaints about airport noise and potentially impact airport operations. So that's kind of, they set the boundaries of the zone and we implement it. In terms of the layering, so what we ended up doing there was, in regard to shipping containers, we put in geographical language in there. So on Highway 3, north of the Yarmouth County Rail Trail, that's kind of the existing commercial area in the airport noise restriction zone. We've put in language that doesn't restrict shipping containers, and then outside of that, it's still restricted to 40 feet of shipping container total on a lot. So there is that layer, treating different areas of that zone differently based on their existing nature.
Yeah, no, and I understand that. I was just wondering, like, at the time, we didn't think we could change the rules of the zone because it was dictated to us by Transport Canada. So I was just trying to make sure before we put something in that we can't actually do, I wanted to make sure that we can do it.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair, the main concern in that zone is, sensitive receptors, uses that are going to be disturbed by noise, whether that's houses, schools, residential facilities. Shipping containers aren't one way or another noise sensitive, so I don't see any restriction there in terms of what we can do with that.
Okay, and the residential piece that Mr. Warden, through you to Ian, so what happens if someone has a home, that has to come down, or there's a piece of property with an abandoned home or something like that that has to be torn down? Will this restrict the rebuilding of it?
Through you, Mr. Chair, so the Municipal Government Act recognizes non-conforming uses, or non-conforming structures and non-conforming uses. And in particular for residential, there's a fair bit of protection. So if you're in that zone and you had a fire and your house burnt down and you were to go to rebuild it, there are protections under the Act to allow that. Where there might be an issue is if you had a house and you tore it down and that use, the residential use ceased for a long period of time, in our case longer than 12 months, because you said, I'm not using that as a home anymore, I'm going to put a business on it. After 12 months, you can't come back and say, oh yeah, that used to be used as a residential property, now I want it to be residential. So the structure is protected and the use is protected up to 12 months of discontinuation.
So if I was to, and I'm not that I'm going to buy property, but if I was to buy a property in that area that currently has a home and a barn and things like that on it, and I tore it down because, it's derelict or whatever, and I wanted to rebuild, there's nothing to stop me. But I have a time frame in order to have to rebuild it?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I would say there wouldn't be a time limit on that as long, because you haven't discontinued the residential use, you haven't turned it to something else. That's more
Okay.
That's the structure, you've torn down the structure, but it's continuing to be residential just while you renovate it or rebuild or whatever. It would be more if you turned that house into a office and then 5 years down the road wanted to turn back into a house. That would be into a residential use. But if you're just doing renovations, if you're tearing down the house and rebuilding it, it's residential all that time,
Yep.
whether or not you're living in it.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Hearing none. All those in favor by passing first reading signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Nay. Motion is carried, a vote of 5-2. Councillor Hilton, would you like your name recorded? No, I would though. Motion is carried. All right, everyone, since first reading is passed, we need to make a motion to set a date, correct?
Yes,
Madam CEO?
Yes, Mr. Chair. So under the Municipal Government Act, there's a requirement for a minimum amount of notice to be provided to residents of the date, time, and place of the hearing. Because of other commitments that council has, the earliest possible date we can recommend for that is November the 14th. And we recommend an early evening time slot.
I better check. There's a lot going on this week. And next week.
So just as a reminder, while you're looking at your calendars, Council, Mr. Watson has advised Council of this in the past, and I will bring it to the table again. Only councillors who attend the public hearing have the right to vote on second reading.
What is the pleasure of council? We need to set a date. Deputy Warden? Whoops, sorry, it was Councillor Sherry Hurlbert. I didn't see her microphone. You have the floor, Councillor Hurlbert. My apologies.
Thank you. I'll make a motion that we set the public hearing for Tuesday, November 14th at 6:30 at a venue that will be large enough to accommodate those who we may think will, so it can't be here. Right, okay.
Okay, a motion on the floor. Do I have a seconder? Seconded by Deputy Warden Trevor Cunningham. Any discussion? So to be clear, the date is November the 14th at 6:30 at a venue large enough to hold a public hearing. Councillor Hilton.
Through you to the CAO, what are we thinking of a venue, like a school gymnasium kind of thing?
We're thinking of a venue that can handle a capacity of around 100 people and meets accessibility standards. So the public hearing will be advertised on our website, social media, print media. We'll likely buy a couple of ads on radio to make sure that the word is available.
And I'm glad that we'll be advertising that in multiple ways. I struggle to think that if we get there and, you know, there is more than 100, that we're not going to allow people through the door, that the bigger the venue you can find, the better. I'd rather be sitting in a room with 50 people that holds 500 than sitting in a room of 100 and have 500 people.
I take your point, Councillor Hilton.
Councillor Hurlbert.
This is one of those moments where I forget what I was going to say, but it was about, rules of, are we going to be making sure that everyone knows what the proper procedure is for the public hearing? You know, how long people get to speak? And will
Yes.
that be published along with the notice?
Yes, yep. And it is a public hearing, it is not a public debate.
Right.
So the public are invited to make written or oral submissions to council for council to listen to and receive. Debate belongs to council.
Okay, thank you.
But also remember that that is not it's a public hearing. It's not for council to debate it. So provided that this motion passes, I'm going to ask that we set a date and time for our second reading of the document. That's when council will be having our debate. So is there any more discussion on the motion on the floor? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried unanimously. All right, I just mentioned the second reading, and typically when council has a second reading on a document, it usually immediately follows or not immediately, right directly after, but within a day or so, or it could be the same day, could be whatever council chooses, but typically that after a public hearing, council does not, or a public hearing, after a public hearing, council usually holds the meeting on the second reading. Correct, Madam CEO?
Yes, Mr. Chair, and I'll also ask that Mr. Watson support this conversation. So there's a parliamentary procedure and there's a spirit of the law to this conversation. So under the planning framework in Nova Scotia, once council has participated in a public hearing, they are required and expected to not be influenced outside of that public hearing. Council receives the information in the public hearing, and council collectively as a whole discusses what was heard and debates what they want to do, what their course of action is. So the best practice is to schedule your council meeting immediately following your public hearing to debate as a council on what you would like to do. So the recommendation from staff is that a council meeting be scheduled for November 14th, immediately following the public hearing.
So what is the pleasure of council? I can't ever remember when council did anything other than that. Councillor Patty Durkee.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and through you to our CAO. If I may, what happens if our, that public hearing ends up being 3 hours?
It's a great question. So the notice of the council meeting cannot set a time, but can read immediately following the public hearing. Or council could set a time, and if the public hearing hasn't closed, council can set a new time for the council meeting to convene.
Thank you.
Councillor Nick Hilton.
Just a comment, I'm with Patty. I think this has been a long and kind of strenuous conversation, and I'm not sure that I want to be put on the spot to make those decisions that evening. We have committee of the whole on the 16th, and we could follow that with a regular council meeting to make that decision. Ian, do you need to be present for second reading? I would assume yes.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair, I'd certainly be happy to support you in second reading. I imagine you'll have some questions, comments, follow-up clarifications, so I suspect it'd be valuable for me to be here.
That would be the only stickler in going 2 days apart, but I can't imagine that we're going to want to have a regular council meeting after a public hearing of this nature.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair, the CAO does make a good point on timing. You know, there is a fairness to not hearing new information, and the longer it goes, the longer you risk on that. But certainly public hearings can be they can go long, it can be a late night and tiring, and you don't necessarily want to make hard decisions right after that. So if not that night, the soonest possible after that, even the next day or morning would be ideal, but I'll make it work either way.
Councillor Sherry Hurlbert.
We need a motion on this?
Yes, you do.
I'm just going to throw this out there. I'll make a motion that we have our special council meeting for this on Wednesday, November 15th at 9 a.m.
Motion on the floor. Do I have a seconder? Seconded by Deputy Warden Trevor Cunningham. Discussion on that. So Councillor Allen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just for discussion purposes, I was going to make a motion to do it after, because we could change our minds and do it the next day. But when this goes past first reading, and through you to Madam CAO or to Ian, now, is this where things kind of go into limbo, that things fall under under both sets of rules, our old LUB and our new?
It passed, so it is currently under both sets of rules.
Right, so we definitely want to do the public hearing and then get where we're going after that, so that anyone that's doing any kind of development or anything like that knows exactly what they're dealing with and can continue to do their own business. So this motion's already on the floor, so I'll be voting on that, but I would have went that night, and then if it went late, we could have always done it the next day, kind of thing. So, but yeah, all right. I just want to clarify that as after tonight, because it was voted yes, there's two sets of rules in place until such time as okay. So yeah, definitely the sooner the better.
Mr. Chair, could I speak to that point about the two sets of rules?
Yes, absolutely.
So just to be clear, I guess, and I know there's a lot of moving parts to this process, so now that first reading has been done, both sets of standards don't just apply until council decides what to do with second reading. They apply until the minister approves the new document. So there is a length of time after documents are submitted to the province until the municipality waits for the approval letter that lock down which sets of rules. So it's not just how much time between tonight and when you may or may not approve second reading. It's the additional time for the minister to approve.
Deputy Warden Trevor Cunningham.
So it's good that we've clarified all those points. So obviously, we're playing with fire a little bit when we delay after the public hearing, because there's two sets of rules in play. But having said that, I think I think we can marry those, even though the motion's been made, I second it. I think it's a good motion for the 9 a.m. meeting the morning after. But I'll move an amendment to the motion that provided that, the hour's not too late, that we would have the meeting immediately following the public hearing. And again, if it's too late, council decides it's too late, then we do it at 9 a.m. time. So that, I'll move that as an amendment to the motion.
So there's an amendment on the floor. Do I have a seconder for the amendment? Seconded by Councillor Daniel Allen. So we're now discussing the amendment on the main motion to hold it immediately after. Any discussion? Councillor Sherry Hurlbert.
Having the terminology "not too late" for all 7 of us to agree upon after we have gotten to the end of the public hearing. If that's going to be the amendment, I would prefer, if the public hearing is finished after whatever time, then we have our council meeting that night. If it happens after a specific time, then it is 9 a.m. Because what's okay for me, after we've had a 3 or 4 hour public hearing, maybe it's going to only be 2 hours, maybe it'll only be 1 hour. But I think there needs to be a time limit set as to what is too late.
I could make a suggestion, but I'm going to go around the table. You can amend the amendment. That you can only do it once. So we have an amendment that we're speaking about now, but you can only amend the amendment once. Councillor Patty Durkee.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is a 160-page document. We have made some changes already, which I appreciate, and thank Ian for bringing forward. We don't know what we're going to get in the public hearing. I would prefer if we did it the next morning or the next day, because I would want to review some of the recommendations made by the public. What if we get a dozen? What if we get 20? What if we get 25? What if we get 100? Personally, I prefer having some time to think things through and not make any rash decisions, so that when we go to second reading, we're well aware of some of the changes that we would like to see put into place. So I prefer the next day, quite frankly. I think that it's going to be a busy evening, and there's going to be a lot of information shared, and I want to be sure I make the right decisions. Thank you. So I'd prefer the next morning.
Deputy Warden.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, and my suggestion would be 8:30. I made the motion. If it's okay by the seconder, it'd be 6:30 to 8:30. If it goes any beyond 8:30, then we'd hold it the morning after. And I hear certainly what Councillor Durkee's saying, but it's been a very, very long process. And again, I'm not certain just how long we want to continue on with the debate the following day in terms of making changes to the document before it gets, because it's got to go to the minister, obviously. So perhaps through you to the CAO, clarify that process a little bit. I mean, how problematic is delaying at that point, at that juncture?
It depends on the length of the delay. I think something, around 12 hours is not particularly problematic. My recommendation would be that it doesn't go beyond days.
Councillor Allen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So this is my first time going through this process. So I want to be clear on something that Councillor Durkee just said about her considering stuff and changes. This is either we're doing this or we're not. We don't change it to go to second reading, or we can make changes before going to second reading.
Yeah, so that's what through you,
Yeah.
Mr. Chair, to Councillor Allen and Mr. Watson, that's what he was briefing council on as a reminder earlier tonight. So we use the term materiality, and I think it was a great frame of reference in terms of changes that impact people's property rights would be material.
Okay.
And if it was the desire of council to make those changes, we go back to first reading. if it's minor, if there's a typo, or if there was a word that maybe was offensive to somebody and a more appropriate word could be used, those sorts of things wouldn't prevent it necessarily from going to second reading. I defer to any additional comments, Mr. Chair, to Mr. Watson.
You have the floor.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair, to Councillor Allen, yeah, that's exactly it. And those would be, any of those changes would come at your discussion of second reading. So you would have the public hearing, you would hear all the comments from the people, we would have that council meeting to discuss what you've heard from people and discuss whether you want to make any changes at that point. And if you made those substantive changes, we'd update the document and we'd go through the whole process again. If you made minor changes or no changes, then it would go off to the minister and, knock on wood, get approved and be in effect eventually.
So any changes at that point that would be made, we'd come back, we'd be back here again to approve another first reading, another,
Only if they're material.
only if they're material. Okay. All right.
All right, everyone, there's an amendment on the main motion on the floor. You all ready to vote? Hearing no more, or seeing no more questions, all those in favor on the amendment signify by saying aye. Opposed? Nay. A vote of 4 to 3 against, so the motion has failed. So now we're going back to the main motion. Main motion, which is November 15th at 9 a.m. for the public hearing. So,
No, special counsel,
for
Mr. Chair.
special counsel, yes, sorry, my apologies. Is there any more discussion on the main motion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion carried unanimously. Is that the last order of business on the old business? I believe so. All right, item number 9, new business, 9.1, recommendations from the Committee of the Whole, 9.1.1, grant coordinator. Councillor Hurlbert, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll make a motion that the municipality of the District of Yarmouth have staff review adding funding in the 2024-2025 fiscal for a part-time grants coordinator.
A motion on the floor, you have a seconder, seconded by Councillor Patty Durkee. Discussion on that? Councillor Patty Durkee, you have the floor.
Thank you. I just want to clarify, first of all, we have a staff person who does work on grants, and I want to just make sure that's clear that Mark's position is someone who looks after grants where we give out money. So a grant coordinator, when we get requests, that would be for our grant program. The difference between what we're looking for is maybe it's considered a grant facilitator, I don't know, name different, whatever, is for us to have someone who looks for grants for us. So it's just, I want to clarify the difference between the two, and I support this. I think, first of all, I also want to add that NSFM now has a person on staff, Lucy McLeod, who has been hired to help municipalities look for grants for specific needs, and which I think would be a great help to all of us, but having someone on our own staff, I think would be beneficial as well. Thank you.
Councillor Allen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think having someone that's looking after trying to find us free money or some type of free money is a great idea. I'm just wondering, like, instead of just creating a position, like to your point about Mark, I'm just wondering if there's someone here, or if staff will be looking either just for the money to hire someone, or is there a way we can kind of add to someone's position here that maybe, I know everyone's busy, I don't want to make it seem like someone's not busy, but I'm just wondering if this is maybe, to Patty's point, like maybe it's something that Mark will love me, but something that maybe could be added to Mark's binder. I don't know if that's the word used, but
So, Mr. Chair, through you to all of council, nobody on staff has any extra capacity. We are short-staffed. I will be very clear on that. But yeah, when something like this comes from council, what we do is, as a team, we kind of go back and we look at other pinch points we have, and we'll come back to council with, a proposed title, a proposed job description, a salary band, and council will let us know if we're creating a position to accomplish the goal that you would like accomplished, and kind of go from there, yeah.
Deputy Warden Trevor Cunningham.
Right, so to add to what Councillor Durkee said and also what Councillor Allen said, I'm in favor of the motion because we're just exploring it at this juncture. We're not saying we're going to hire a person, so the devil's in the details, obviously, for all the reasons you indicated. It would be salary band, it would be what are they doing, but an important part of that exploration would obviously be looking at that new role that NSFM's taken on, because my understanding is that person will be sort of listing all the grants that municipalities in Nova Scotia might be able to access, whether it's federal, provincial, all those types of things. So we'd have a little better lay of the land type thing. It might organize a little bit more, and that person would be helpful in that way. So that may impact, the role that we may potentially look at. But again, I'm voting in favor of it because it's worth exploring. But I'm not certain at this juncture, because obviously a salary is a salary, and that money has to come from somewhere. So I'd need some evidence that would be good value for our money before I would take the next step. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Nick Hilton.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And, I think I agree with everyone that spoke so far. I don't think any of us are looking to add salary to the budget, but at the same time, we've seen this position in other municipalities bring in more than it's cost to have them, and I think that's our goal. You've seen the banner program in town funded through a beautification grant where we paid for our banner program. So, that alone would probably have equal out a half-time position for that year. So the town getting grants to put in their active transportation trails. I want to look at what it would look like if we had a position here, and hopefully that we can do some of the projects that we all want to do for the community and maybe have it funded by something other than our tax base.
Councillor Patty Durkee.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I agree with what Nick just said, that it could be cost savings in the long run. But I also want to add that writing grant proposals is not an easy or short task. When you're working on some of these grant proposals for money from other levels of government, they're long and they're time-consuming. So as our CAO has pointed out, our staff are already extremely busy, and I know this would be a time-consuming process.
I'll make one comment before I call for the question. I agree with this, and the specifics of this motion are, from my understanding, and someone please correct me if I'm wrong, that staff review adding funding to the 24-25. It's not added automatically. It's if we can afford it coming up next budget season. And I appreciate that the work that the committee of the whole did, that I didn't attend, that I appreciate the wording in this, because at the end of the day, we don't know if we can afford it or not. So, having said that, if there's no more discussion on the motion on the floor, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried unanimously. Thank you, everyone. Item 9.1.2, request for decision, memorandum of understanding / service exchange. Deputy Warden Trevor Cunningham, you have the floor.
All right, I can say I was actually in Halifax last week while this, and I went to the legislature while this was being debated. We were one of two people in the audience, so we outstripped the provincial legislature by quite a bit, so congratulations to everybody in the audience tonight, because it's an important bill, and there were only two people from the public there, so in the event, it was interesting, the debate. So having said that, it's recommended that council correspond with the minister of, sorry, that's a recommendation. I'll move that the Municipality District of Yarmouth correspond with the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing, indicating it has reviewed the proposed memorandum of understanding and associated amending legislation with a lens specific to the District of Yarmouth. It is also, please include in the correspondence, an indication the work to date is moving incrementally in the right direction. However, concern should be raised with the lack of detail around the process to renegotiate sharing of service responsibilities between the province and municipalities, specifically recommending that when Schedule A is dealt with, the process should include a terms of reference dealing with items that are to be reviewed. The methodology for the review committee structure, roles and responsibilities, method for reporting out to stakeholders and meaningfully engaging with municipalities. 2, point out the language in Bill 340 does not confirm the terms of the deal with certainty. Bill 340 is unclear as to what the effect of the regulation referenced throughout the bill will bring. And again, there are a couple of other items, but pointing out the difficulties at arriving at an official council position on the deal, recognizing not all the services have been reviewed, and therefore not all items can be evaluated in terms of overall best deal for the residents of the District of Yarmouth. Acknowledge the addition of roads option B to Schedule A, as it lacks sufficient detail for responsible decision-making, and creates political strife between the province and municipalities, and may possibly frustrate residents. So with that, I'll move that. Thank you.
Motion on the floor, do I have a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Lauren Cushing. Any discussion on the motion on the floor? Councillor Patty Durkee.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Bill 340 has come up as being extremely controversial. I can tell you that the NSFM worked diligently with the provincial government to come up with the Bill 340, which I'm hoping everybody has read. And because essentially it's taking from 1995 as the old agreement, and it's trying to move forward. A couple of things. One is the regulations are not being included in the legislature right now, because that's all the details following the bill, and so they didn't want to put that in the legislature at the present time, because it means that they would have to go in and change the bill, which means that would get delayed even more. And so that's why the regulations have not been included. It's like the Code of Conduct. The Code of Conduct was agreed upon, but the regulations weren't, and they are continuing to be worked on, and this is still, so it's still some time before this will be put into place. At this time, I support Bill 340. I think it's a good move for the municipalities. We would be keeping money that we've collected to use however we so choose. And according to our CAO, that's about $200,000 at this time. Correct me if I'm wrong. The government has said this is just the beginning. There have been things that the government has come through with that they haven't consulted with the municipalities or haven't been collaborative, but this is one of the situations where they have been collaborative, and I think it's a good move. And so at this time, I would prefer not to send a letter criticizing every little piece here, but I would wait and to see what happens and then say, these are the things that need to be worked out. So I will not be supporting this motion.
Done, Councillor Durkee?
I am done.
Councillor Sherry Hurlbert, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And just for clarity, this bill is being considered for second reading, correct? Can Madam CA clarify that?
It is on the order papers for
Right.
second reading debate. It has not made it there in the last couple of days yet.
And so according to what I heard what I think I heard on the news was that they were looking to hopefully close down for the fall sitting soon. And so there is a possibility that this won't make it to where our PC government wants it to be before they close for the fall, correct?
I haven't asked that specific question to our municipal advisor, Mr. Chair, through you to Councillor
Okay.
Hurlbert. What I understand from the Associate Deputy Minister today was that the order papers are issued every day that the House is sitting, and like council, they have a standard agenda, and they go through the agenda every day. And so when the House rises, for example, the House rose just after midnight last night, because they set an adjournment time, and so they do as much business as they can until the adjournment time. It's my understanding that the government can decide when the House will rise for the fall, and so I believe government can decide how long the legislature will sit until the business of government is dealt with.
Okay, perfect, thanks.
Deputy Warden.
Yes, Mr. Warden, I think Councillor Durkee's correct, actually, in her comments. The criticism of the motion is read, and given that, I'd like to withdraw the motion and propose another motion. That's all right by the seconder?
Is there, sorry.
You can't do that because it's already on the floor. We're debating it. It's either the motion passes or it fails. As long as you don't make another motion materially the same, I'd accept that. So we need to let this motion play out that's currently on the floor.
Then, Mr. Chair, given Councillor Durkee's comment, with which I agree, I'll not be voting in favor of the motion I made. So I'll call a question on the motion.
I'd like a little bit of discussion myself before I entertain that. Well, the thing of it is that we all have the right to speak on any motion on the floor, and I'm one of those because I do have a separate seat. I'll make it brief. In that regards, I think this has been a long time coming that finally the province, after many different governments of all political stripes, we've asked for years and years and years to open up the MGA and get it changed. I think it's a step in the right direction. There's a lot of things on there that's going to certainly benefit the municipality of District of Yarmouth, as the CAO had mentioned. It's roughly going to be at least $200,000, give or take, as the CAO had mentioned. I think it'd be wrong to push back on it as it is now, because it's been, as long as I've been a councillor and probably many terms before me, that we wanted this open. And so here we are, and now we're going to turn back on it? I don't think so. That's my point. Any more discussion on the motion on the floor? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed?
Sorry, the motion is to send us, sorry. You voted for your motion. Yeah, you voted for your motion.
All right, let me call for that again. Signify by saying aye and raising your right hand. Aye. Opposed? A motion to 5-2, motion is defeated. Deputy Warden?
My apologies, good catch. So I'll move, and this is a material different motion because obviously it doesn't have all of the, all of the detail and criticism in it. So I'll make a more positive motion. How does that sound? So I'll move that the municipality of the District of Yarmouth correspond with the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing, indicate in his review the proposed MOU and associated amending legislation with a lens specific to the District of Yarmouth, and indicate the work to date is moving incrementally in the right direction.
Okay, a motion on the floor. Do I have a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Patty Durkee. That is materially different. Any discussion on the motion on the floor? Councillor Durkee.
I just want to add that mention incrementally, and the government has said that this is just the beginning. And I agree that there's still Schedule A, and that's going to go into other areas of concern, which would be roads and education. And so we've made good progress so far, and I hope, make no assumptions, that it'll be positive discussions on the other issues at hand. And I also want to comment at this point that if there's anybody on council who would like to speak at law amendments, you're invited to do so.
I can also support this motion that's currently on the floor. You are correct that it's incrementally getting better. It's not a motion saying, no, we don't want it to open, because as we all know, we wanted some of these changes in the MGA because it puts a financial strain on the municipality, on which my opinion and many other councillors' opinions, not going to speak for any of you, but any of my colleagues that I speak to across the province, that stuff's being downloaded and we really don't have any legislative authority in schools and stuff like that. So I'm in support of the motion that's currently on the floor. Any more discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried unanimously. Are we done with that? Item 9.1.3, Council Procedural Policy C-028-19. Councillor Nick Hilton.
I will make a motion that Modi approves the amendments to Council Procedural Policy C-028-19.
Okay, motion on the floor. Do I have a seconder? Seconded by Deputy Warden Trevor Cunningham. Any discussion on the motion on the floor? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried unanimously. Item 9.1.4, Tax Collection Policy T-8210-23. Recommendation from the Committee of the Whole. What's council's pleasure? Councillor Sherry Hurlbert.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll make a motion that the Municipality of District of Yarmouth approve tax collection policy T-8210-23 as presented.
Motion on the floor. Do I have a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Nick Hilton. Discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried unanimously. Item 9.1.5, cleanup of AAN 4897064. Councillor Hurlbert.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll make the motion that the Municipality of the District of Yarmouth direct staff to start the property cleanup and associated costs to be added to AAN 4987064.
Motion on the floor. Do I have a seconder?
I think there was just a transposition of the AAN number, yep.
So the motion on the floor is to 4897064, correct? Okay, motion on the floor, seconded by Councillor Daniel Allen. Discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion carried unanimously. Item 9.2.1, transfer to reserves. Deputy Warden.
Yes, so a bit of a good news story here. So certainly I'll move that the municipality of District of Yarmouth transfer $1,044,000 to reserves, split 50-50 between operating reserves and capital reserves for the 2022 23 fiscal year. Yeah.
Okay, a motion on the floor. Do I have a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Daniel Allen. Discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion carried unanimously. Item 9.3, first reading of the alternative voting bylaw, A-028-20. What is council's pleasure? Councillor Allen.
Make a motion that
Can you turn this microphone on?
Yeah.
There you go. I will make a motion that we approve the first reading of the alternative voting bylaw A-028-20.
Yeah, motion on the floor. Do I have a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Lauren Cushion. Discussion, and before I open up the question, I'm going to make a comment. As we all remember, when we first started discussing the alternative bylaw for this subject, I made some comments about the voting and electronic voting. I want to correct the record because my words matter, and what my words did was cast a shadow of doubt on the previous election. I had said, I do not trust the electronic voting. I must apologize to each and every one of my council members, staff, and members of the public. I did not mean to cast any doubt on the eligibility of each and every councillor that's sitting here was done illegitimately. I think those statements were reckless, and I must apologize for that. That's something that I made in I believe it was a committee of the whole meeting, not this month, but the month before. I regret those remarks. I do believe the integrity of our previous election. My only point was I wanted people to have the choice to be able to vote with paper. So, once again, I make this public statement that I apologize for any doubt that I may have cast. So, with that said, Councillor Nick Hilton.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And there's only one change to the voting bylaw, and that's to allow paper ballots, with the decision to be made of how that's going to occur more than a year before. And I think that does, somewhat accomplish what the request was at the committee of the whole discussion. I still find it limiting, but I am in favor of the motion, and we will see next year with with paper ballots and electronic voting, the uptake on both, and then we can maybe review that again. I think we review it every election, so it does accomplish what the ask is. I do believe that electronic voting has some pros and cons, and I think I wasn't offended by your comments. I thought you made them, and they were your comments, and that was fair. So we appreciate your apology, but there is no need. So yeah, I'm in favor. Thanks.
No, Councillor, I'd watched the previous meeting, and I believe that my comments were a little bit out of order. My words matter up here, so I think it's very important that I correct the record. And as you all know, if I think I've done anything wrong, I'll certainly correct the record. We all remember the not misuse of a corporate credit card, but I inadvertently used a corporate credit card that shouldn't have been used for. Anyway, I owe up to all my mistakes. Councillor Allen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I agree with Councillor Hilton 100%, and I'm just glad we're putting this out there so that people do have the option to vote whichever way they want. I also want to make sure, in this new one, it says any decision made by council to offer paper ballots will be made by resolution no later than 1 year prior to the general municipal election, but we are going to be within that 1 year by approving this. But I think, just to clarify, we will be able to offer this because this was already written prior to the year ahead.
Correct.
So, yeah, I just want to make sure that people realize that this will be in effect for the next election.
Deputy Warden Trevor Cunningham.
Yeah, so I'd just like to comment that I think we have, as a council, done some good work there in offering the option to vote with the paper ballot. Many people want to do that, and many people also want to do it electronically, so I think it's the best of both worlds, and staff will work on a plan to get that done for the upcoming election. So thank you to staff, and thank you for, I think it's the best way forward.
Before I call for the question, I'm pleased that this was able to be added. This is something that I've heard quite a bit about, and at least the option will be there, and it will be up to the next council after the next election whether they want to decide to move forward, because obviously it has to be opened up and reviewed again. So is there any more discussion on the motion on the floor? Question being called. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion carried unanimously. Item 9.4, first reading of repeal of municipal offices bylaw M-067-93.
Actually, Mr. Chair, the bylaw being voted on is R-608-23. It's the bylaw that's being repealed that you referenced, but first reading would be on the title of the bylaw in the actual document. Sorry, Mr. Chair. I think you're reading from the agenda, but first reading will be on repeal of municipal offices bylaw R-6108-23.
Okay, I see now.
Sorry, Mr. Chair.
No, that's quite all right. I was unsure of what you were talking about. Okay, what is the pleasure of council? Moved by Councillor Nick Hilton, seconded by Councillor Daniel Allen. Any discussion on the motion on the floor? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion carried unanimously. All right, item 9.5, Blue Bag Education Campaign. Madam CAO?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So, Council, I would just like to give you a very short verbal briefing on an initiative that I've been working on with my colleagues at the Yarmouth County Solid Waste Park, Town of Yarmouth, and Municipality of Argyle, as well as our vendor who processes the blue bags for us. We've been doing a little bit of auditing, and we aren't quite doing as well as we should be doing on sorting the materials that go into the blue bags. So in our solid waste collection framework, blue bags, there are two. One has paper products, fiber it's called, and the other has your recyclable containers. When the items in the blue bags are not sorted correctly and they go to the processing facility, we lose an opportunity for our vendor to generate revenue, which will drive our costs up. We put more items in the landfill that should be going in the landfill, and we don't realize our overall environmental goals through the solid waste program. And we experience higher costs in terms of overall handling of waste. So what we've decided to do collectively is to run an education campaign to just reinforce and teach people how to do the sorting in the blue bags. But there are requirements under the solid waste bylaw to do this correctly, or your solid waste, resident solid waste can be rejected. And so the education campaign will begin in a couple weeks. It will run for about a month, and then the solid waste bylaws in the Town of Yarmouth, the Municipality of Yarmouth, and the Municipality of Argyle will be strictly enforced with respect to blue bags. And so I just wanted to brief you that we're bringing this initiative forward for all those good reasons I listed, and that a detailed campaign will roll out, and you'll receive information on that.
Councillor Sherry Hurlbert.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Madam CAO, for that. I happened to be at the Solid Waste Park for a policy committee meeting, one of the days that our manager himself was actually doing the informal audit. So we had this pile of blue bags at a separate part of the location, and it was off of one particular run, and they audited one run from every run from all 3 municipalities. And this particular day, here was these blue bags, and it was amazing to me that there was that much, there were so many things that were in those blue bags that are clearly not supposed to be in blue bags. Like, I can get, oh, maybe a can ends up, accidentally with the paper or something, but there were just things like garbage that should have been in the garbage bag. So I, wholeheartedly support an education campaign. We had, some discussion at our last solid waste meeting, with Waste Check on how, some of those things might play out. I, suggest, I don't know if it will happen, but, having some videos of, the manager or someone at the waste park, taking that bag and saying, here's what belongs, and here's what doesn't, and here's what belongs. Also, in addition to that, I'm assuming, the Recycle Coach app will be out there, and that's something that I use, and they actually had a quiz on there the other day that I took, where does this go, where do you think that goes? And a couple of them I got wrong, but then I could look them up. But the Recycle Coach app is one of those at your fingertips apps that will tell you where anything that you need to go goes. And our solid waste, our Waste Check people actually monitor that and can, for lack of a better word, program it to suit the needs and some of the trends that are happening. So, it will be tough for some of our residents who will have, blue bags rejected eventually. But, I hope that we can do everything we, possibly can to get the word out, however that might be. Once we have that, can you maybe, let us know as a council so that we can, in case we start getting calls from, residents on, how to kind of, where to direct them, and I know that will be an additional, not burden, but, additional responsibility for Waste Check to be fielding some of those calls. So just so that we know when it's going to start and how we can best support our residents when they do have those questions. Okay, perfect, thanks.
Councillor Patty Durkee.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you very much, Madam CAO. I'm happy to see this happening, but while we're doing this education piece, could we add that paper cups go in recycle bags and not along the side of the road? It's getting worse and worse, and I can't believe that. And I just don't understand that mentality of people who think they should take their garbage and chuck it out the window. But paper cups the amount of paper cups I see is brutal. So, if we could toss that in there to remind people to put those paper cups in a blue bag and not along the side of the road. They don't. The paper cups don't? They go in the garbage. Oh, there, you just taught me something.
Use the Recycle Coach. Object lesson. They go in the garbage, all of them.
All of them? Okay, well, I just learned something. Thank you so much, Councillor Herbert. Go in a bag, whether it's a white bag or a blue bag, but not on the side of the road. It's garbage. Thank you. Well, I think that is a good point, and I didn't know, so I bet you there's lots of other people that don't know as well. Yeah, exactly.
Oh, Councillor Nick Hilton. I'm going to make a comment about that.
I couldn't agree more with both of you. Just through you to, it's going to be to the CAO. She's hanging out. Through you to the CAO, and I think one of the important things for people to take from this is, we're talking about garbage and we're spending 10 minutes doing it, and people are like, well, what's the issue? But Madam CAO, what is the percentage of house taxes that get paid towards solid waste? Do you know? It's like 10%, is it not? Roughly? Take a guess. Is she cringing? I feel like it's 10%. There's a chart somewhere, and I just can't find it on our website.
You're looking for the pie chart,
Yeah, I'm looking for the pie chart.
and I can't find it
I
either.
can never find the pie chart.
It's significant, that's for sure.
I think it's 16%, if
Yeah.
I remember correctly.
Yeah. So.
Oh, wait, I can tell you, just a minute, as you were.
Yeah, so this isn't a small issue. It's more than we pay for policing. Like, or as much as we pay for policing, it's equal, and it's just under what we pay for education. So, if we can save money doing these things by educating people to properly dispose of their waste, really, it's saving you taxpayer dollars. And pie plates go in the plastics, do they not? Yeah, there you go. If they're clean, yeah. Speaking of pie.
So we make it just for our contribution to Waste Check, our tipping fees, our garbage collection contract, our recyclables processing, and some miscellaneous, is $481,000 a year on 17 million.
More than that. It's got to be more than that. I still believe it's more than that.
I guess you could look at it another way, Mr. Chair, through you to Councillor Hilton. So we raise approximately $100,000 for every penny on the tax rate. So that's a lot of pennies on the tax rate.
Councillor Lauren Cushing.
Thank you, Mr. Warden. Just to just to add to the comments about the garbage alongside the roads and whatnot, I had an email, I guess, just the other day about, is there any way we can increase fines and increase enforcement and whatnot to charge offenders of this? And I don't know what else, what exactly we can do. But however, I want to thank, I know in my district, and I'm sure in other districts, there's a lot of volunteers out there regularly picking up garbage on side the road and through the ditches and whatnot. And I think, I commend them for doing this. And how can we get the public from start just throwing stuff out the window? It is an education piece. It's going to be, it has been and is going to be continuous education part. And the blue bags that are being separated now from paper products, and Councillor Durkee picked it up, and and I agree with her. There's still a lot of citizens that get very confused. It might sound pretty simple how to put, recyclables in one, non-recyclables in the other one, or a paper product in the other one. But it still gets confusing. I know several people who just are just, distraught about why is this being done, right? But our CAO certainly explained a good point about it, right? So what it costs us and whatnot. But education is going to be it, and we certainly got to improve the way we reach out to the public to educate them on the proper way of doing things. Thank you.
Councillor Allen.
Well, since we're going to talk about garbage, I got to agree with all this. We have a volunteer in our area. You drive down the airport stretch, and that person takes care of a section of the airport stretch, and I see her there at least 2 or 3 times a week, and she has to do the same stretch every day, and that's litter. And I know we've got to educate on the blue bags. We went from paper cups and plastic straws to plastic cups and paper straws. And I know for a while that threw everybody for a loop, me too, but I guess the plastic cups are recyclable and the paper straws are garbage now. But education on this stuff, I don't know how. You're still going to have those people that, if they're willing to chuck it out the window, aren't going to care what bag they put it in. I don't know how to reach them. I wish I did. I really wish we could. I wish we could reach out and get it in their head that it's, to Councillor Hilton's point, like, they're paying tax dollars at their homes. You just separate it and it doesn't go away for free, but it goes away. And can't stress that enough. You can take it home, separate it, and it'll get picked up. It's much better to get picked up than to just throw it out on the side of the road. And I agree with the education part. I just don't know how we can educate enough.
In regards to education, it was my understanding that the Solo Cups, which was put out by a couple large chain companies in town and all across Nova Scotia and Canada, could recycle their cups, the Solo Cups, even though they were lined. The Tim Hortons cups. So they're garbage now. The education piece, if I remember correctly, that you could put those in your blue bags, if I remember correctly.
Originally, back in the day, it was explained to me that yes, they could, because the owner of our local franchise was purchasing cups that could be recycled by our facility. But that is no longer the case.
Interesting. Didn't know that.
So they all go, it's easy, it's kind of easy now. It all just goes in the garbage.
And that's not easy either to some people. Out the window it goes, or out the back of the truck. All right, any more discussion on the Blue Flag education program? Well, I was educated today. Okay, there's an addition to this, item 9.6, Yarmouth Fire Department report. Councillor Lauren Cushing, you had asked to have this added. You have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Warden. I attended that the Yarmouth Fire Department banquet and witnessed the awards that were presented that night. And number one, it was great to see so many people attend. Number two, it was great to see the upstairs of the fire department being used like it was originally built to do. It was great to see that. But most impressive to me was the amount of training that the firefighters undertake in order to become a fireman or fire lady. And it was amazing, the different levels they have to go through, and they're pushed to do better than just get by, right? So, I was very, very impressed over that, and I certainly want to, and I thanked them that night, and I certainly want to thank them again for looking after several districts in the municipality of Yarmouth for their loyalty and protection to our citizens. So I just want to let the council know and the public know that the Yarmouth Fire Department has a number of new members, and they're always training. They have a fire building outside where they can actually practice on rescuing through smoke and whatnot, and the different levels of stuff that they do is just amazing. So, I just wanted to let council know and the public know that the Yarmouth Fire Department are very well trained. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor, and thank you for attending on my behalf. I had another commitment that evening, so thank you very much for attending. Moving on, item number 10, correspondence. There's nothing for action. Item 10.2, for information. We all have this in front of us. This YC Yarmouth Consolidated Memorial High School Remembrance Day ceremonies. A reminder to respond. And item 10.2.2, something that I know every councillor hears about just about every day, the urgent need for advocacy to improve rural cell phone coverage. Terrible is right. That's in your information package. Item 11, reports, CAO's report. Deputy Warden Trevor Cunningham.
Yeah, just under capital projects, the Nova West Business Park Phase 2, which is our park in Hebron. It's been renamed, as most folks know. So there's been some engineering's underway and unit costing, that type of thing, and there's going to be a presentation, looks like it's coming in November through you, Mr. Chair, to the CEO. Any inkling of, when that will be in November? Will it be early November, late November, or?
Our goal is to present the proposed design to council at council in November.
Okay, so late November, yeah, and it'll be really, really good because that means jobs for the area and potential to put businesses in the right spot. Thank you.
Councillor Sherry Hurlbert.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Madam CAO. Under capital projects, 5C, accessibility renovations, so we should be having some recommendations to council in November, which is good to see, excuse me, that file moving forward. Can you provide an update on the Cape First Shoe project, where that is, please?
Right, so the inspection was done after the construction of the look-offs was completed. There was a deficiency list created. There was one item outstanding as of early this week on the deficiency list, and we've reconciled that with the general contractor. So the project is considered complete. We're in the warranty period, and as I think I said in my report, we're looking at a grand opening in the spring.
Okay.
Maybe
And
not.
so
Maybe just-
it will not be available for,
It's open, yep.
It's open now?
Yep, well, I say
Fencing
that,
is-
when that one last item is actually completed, then you'll be able to access them. So there won't be any restriction over the winter, it'll be
Okay.
able to be used. We'll just have a grand opening in the spring, and then there will be embellishments to the asset next year. So there are no benches, there are no static binoculars installed yet, and that will come next spring.
okay, perfect, thank you.
Councillor Patty Durkee.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Madam CAO. Just a question with regard to capital projects E, the Port Maitland Fog Alarm Building. First of all, yes, I saw that work was being done, and it's greatly appreciated on the interior and the roof. And I'm just wondering about the land around that building, if there's an update on that. Thank you.
There is. So I'm given to understand that depending on the terms that council will put on its divestiture, so when council decides how to divest it, whether to go directly to a community group or whether to offer it by tender, there could be terms and conditions in that offer. And so there will be options for council to consider that are part of legal advice. And so they'll be in the briefing note to council when we're ready to present it for you to make your decision as a council on how you want to divest it.
I want to make one comment on there, and there's something that's very, 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 very important in there. It's in regards to the retirement of the debenture. Madam CEO, would you wish to speak to that? I think it's a fabulous day.
So the construction of this building was funded through debt to the municipality. Like most mortgages, every so often, a renegotiation on the interest rate has to happen. And so this October, the municipality of Yarmouth arrived at that stage gate on the mortgage for this building. And a decision was made by council to pay the $1.6 million remaining on the mortgage and retire the mortgage on this building, and it's funded out of reserves.
Yes, so that means that the municipality district of Yarmouth does not have a very large debt load. We only have roughly $200,000 left owing on the Public Works building, the expansion that we did up there. That means that we're in very good financial shape. So I'm happy to see that this is finally going, because some of you may or may not know, it'd be only me and the deputy warden that remember when we were elected, this administration building was an absolutely hot topic. But at the end of the day, I wasn't elected because of it. The councillor at the time decided he wasn't going to reoffer again, and there were 7 new ones. But I do know that some people that were out there running, some councillors lost their seat over this building. I'm not going to sit here and debate whether it was a right or wrong decision, but at the end of the day, this building belongs to the residents of the municipality district of Yarmouth. There's no debt owing on it, and I think that's a fabulous day. Deputy Warden?
Yes, Mr. Warden, just to be absolutely clear, We were around at the time, but not in the council seat. We came after that, so I did not vote for the building. Other four. And neither did you, so there you go.
Well, if you're not going to have fun, you might as well not do anything at all, right? Yes, that's right. We weren't in the seat to make the decision, but we were here during the aftermath. Yes, so if there's no more questions on the CA's report, I'd entertain a motion to accept the CA's report as presented.
I'll move that the municipality of Yarmouth accept the CO's report is circulated.
Motion on the floor, do I have a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Lauren Cushion. Any discussion or any more discussion on the CEO's report? One thing I will mention, it's a heck of a lot longer than mine. If you look in there, there's all the correspondence and motions that we made, and there's a lot of work that goes into this, so thank you very much. Any more discussion on the motion on the floor? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried unanimously. Next one on the list is my report. It was short and sweet, as you all know. I had a leave of absence earlier in the month, and then when I returned home, I found out I had COVID and was mentioned to me that I should stay until I test negative, stay away from the public. I was out and about in my own vehicle, and I was still available via cell phone and emails. One thing that I want to point out is something that's coming up and that hasn't happened here since 2015. Nova Scotia Music Week is happening. That's a large event. Right now, I do believe at least the Rod Grand Hotel is sold out. This event's going on from November the 2nd to the 5th, and please visit the www.yarmouthandacadianshores.com for tickets or anything like that. There's a lot of great local and Nova Scotia musicians that are coming, and it's a lot of fun. You may even see me play guitar a little bit. You never know, I've been practicing. Councillor Hilton.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for the report. I just wanted to comment on two of the things you mentioned, that Music Week has already exceeded ticket sales for the event held previously in Cape Breton, so everyone's pretty pumped about that. And you mentioned the business awards, and I just wanted to give a shout out to Patty for being nominated for Tourism Business of the Year.
Thank you.
Yes, that's correct. I did mention that. Unfortunately, when I got back, I was told that I shouldn't be out in a public setting, so I couldn't attend that event, but glad to see that, yeah, I know you were there, and I seen pictures, seen lots of pictures. And I'd also like to congratulate all the winners and anyone who was nominated for that. It's a great event that happens out there at the Mariner Center. Councillor Durkee.
I just want to comment that it's an amazing event, and when you see all of the businesses that have been nominated, it's pretty impressive. A lot of new businesses that have opened up in Yarmouth, and I think this year they had mentioned that they had more nominations than they've ever had, and the function was sold out, and that means they sold over 300 tickets for people to attend that function. So yay to all the businesses in Yarmouth. You're making a statement and doing fantastic. It's great. And support local.
And the last thing on my report is in regards to Halloween. Just remind everyone to be on the lookout for little ones running the roads. There are some community trick or trunk events that are being held. There's one going to be held in the Carlton Fire Hall, which I'll be attending that one. I got a unique suit this year to wear, so keep your eyes peeled for that.
How are we going to know?
Oh, you're going to know, because I might wear it here one of these nights. You never know. Anyway, that's my report. So moving on to other reports. Item 11.3, legal entities. Does anyone have any verbal reports to add to the written reports in there? Councillor Patty Durkee.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to report on the Yarmouth and Acadian Shores Tourism Association, that they are highly involved in Nova Scotia Music Week, and it's lovely to have a big event like that in shoulder season to put heads in bed, so it's a really positive, and sounds like the sales are going extremely well. You've all received also a letter from Yarmouth and Acadian Shores with regards to the change in the levy bylaw. And just to make it quick, the government has changed the legislation, and it's now up to the municipalities to decide whether or not they charge charge a levy to visitors to staying in accommodations in the different municipalities in Nova Scotia. In general, a great report has come out and which was shared with you, so please make sure you read it, because we will be looking at putting forth a new bylaw, which will be asking for all accommodations, not just 20 rooms and above. So that means that anybody who has accommodations like Airbnbs will be collecting 3% levy, if approved by the municipalities, from visitors to our area, which will certainly benefit the Yarmouth Acadian Shores Association and events that are held here. So please make sure that's well read, because we'll be looking for a vote in the near future.
Councillor Hilton.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and just a couple notes about Mariner Center Expansion Committee, that we are moving forward to 66% drawings, and a question from fellow councilors earlier today that they have received confirmation that from the federal government that moving to a standalone building does not affect federal funding. So, and for the public, the reason we chose a standalone building was specifically around cost savings, and we're getting literally a bigger bang for our buck, bigger pool, bigger walking track, just a bigger facility in general. Apparently building new is cheaper than adding on to a older building. So that's about it. Just want to say thank you to Dean Fuller for his time on the EPC committee and everything that he gave while he was there, and we wish him well with his next venture.
Any more reports on that? Hearing none, move on to advisory committees. Any verbal reports other than the written? Ad hoc committees? Okay, we did the in-camera session. We were completed in there, so there was one in-camera recommendation. Councillor Hurlbert.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll make a motion that the municipality of the District of Yarmouth accept a sum of money equivalent to 5% of the market value for subdivision file number 9957 as a parkland dedication.
Okay, a motion on the floor. Do I have a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Daniel Allen. Discussion on that? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried unanimously. All right, item number 14. That is the end of our agenda. I call this meeting closed. Thank you, everyone.